briefly mentioned a few slides back about the .htaccess file. The .htaccess is only a text file, but it can change settings on a server and allow you to do many different things. Probably the most popular thing that the .htaccess file is used for is customizing your 404 error pages. Yet there are many uses people are not aware of for SEO. Before starting though, I need to mention that .htaccess files are used on Linux and Unix servers and not Windows-based servers. I do not personally use Windows servers for any of my websites, and therefore cannot provide an alternative for the .htaccess file. Yet I know they exist, and if you do a quick search you will find something similar. Also, it is important to know that much of what the .htaccess file is used for requires your server to have the Apache Mod Rewrite module enabled. So starting off, one of the greatest SEO benefits of using the .htaccess file is to redirect your domain in order to be found in only one location. A common mistake for webmasters is to have one website but on two domains. Many people don't realize that example.com and www.example.com is actually two different domains. Even though your content shows up on both the www and the non-www, it is still different to the search engines. This is a problem, because if someone links to your website using the www and someone else links to your website without the www, then the search engines will only count one link instead of two when determining the authority of your site. Google addresses this problem in Google Webmasters, but it isn't a perfect solution, and Bing doesn't even provide a solution. So if you are optimizing for Bing, the .htaccess file is doubly important. Using the .htaccess file, you can overcome this issue by redirecting all non-www requests to your site to the www version or vice versa. All you need to do is add one of the following codes to your .htaccess file. This will redirect any request to example.com and to www.example.com. Here's the code if you want to reverse this and have the www point to the non-www. As always, you can find these codes and all others in the Pluralsight exercise file. Now, as stated before, merging these two domains into one is one of the most important uses of any htaccess file. However, there are several additional things that you can use the .htaccess file for. It is also helpful to use the .htaccess file to redirect individual pages. The two most often used codes are 301 and 302. 301 tells the search engine that your intention is to permanently redirect this page, whereas a 302 redirect is only temporary. As mentioned before, when you use the search engine webmaster tools, you may be notified of 404 pages or pages that the search engines have indexed but do not exist. Having too many 404 pages can be damaging to your rankings. I recommend going through each page and determine why the file cannot be found. Often the file has simply been modified and can be found elsewhere. In this situation, it is most likely that the destination is permanent and you would use a 301 redirect to inform the search engines that the page has permanently been moved. Here's a snapshot of a list of pages on HerbalDoc that I am 301ing. When we switched shopping carts, our new shopping cart required a different link structure for our products. So not to lose the SEO value, I 301 the old URLs to the new ones. If you are only moving a page temporarily, you need to switch out the 301 to a 302. If the wrong type of redirect has been set up, search engines may become confused, which will result in a loss of traffic. Dynamic variables in a URL are often used with different coding languages like PHP. Dynamic pages these days can usually be indexed by search engines, but it is still nice to display SEO-friendly links. Here's an example of a URL that is not considered SEO-friendly. The rewrite rule you can use is this. This will output the URL as this. Often, when a company has a site structure with dynamic URLs and then learns about how easy it is to rewrite them into keyword-rich URLs, they are quick to change out their structure. If you are in this situation and decide to take this course of action, be prepared for a loss of traffic while the search engines re-index your new URLs. I've seen sites lose almost half of their traffic for several months when doing a URL rewrite, and in one dramatic case, the site never fully recovered. Personally, I feel that if you have a well-established website, There are far better things you can focus your SEO energies on than making such a dramatic change. Finally, I mentioned earlier that I would share how to use the .htaccess file to speed up the server speed. Web page designs are getting richer and richer, which means more scripts, style sheets, images, and rich media in the page. A first-time visitor to your page may have to make several HTTP requests, but you can significantly speed up your site by caching and compressing these components. Here's the code I use in the .htaccess file for most of the sites I have. I won't pretend that I am some super geek because I'm definitely not, but I think it will help if I break down exactly what this code is doing. First, we will be dealing with the expire headers. The expires headers tell the browser to store website components in the browser's cache until they expire, which are defined by the header. By using the expires header, the components are cacheable. This avoids unnecessary HTTP requests on subsequent page views and thus makes your page load faster. This will also decrease server load as well. Expire headers are most often used with images, but they should be used on all components including scripts, style sheets, Flash, etc. The current highlighted code deals with the global browser caching controls. The expires active is turned on, which communicates to the server to activate the expires headers function. The next line, expires default, has next to it A86400. The A stands for access, and the numbers represent the amount of seconds that the browser should cache website components. So A86400 is stating that a website component should be cached for 86,400 seconds from the time the user accessed the material. Incidentally, 86,400 seconds equates to 24 hours. For your convenience, I've added to the Pluralsight exercise file a cheat sheet for total seconds that show different time frames. If a website component is not specifically defined to be cached, this line of code says that the default cache time should be 1 day. The next chunk of code is defining certain website components and how long they should be cached. This code sets caching for these media files for 3 weeks. These type of website components are non-sensitive and don't change often. I've seen some sites cache these files for 20 years. This line deals with cache control and is similar to expires, but it is considered to be the latest caching practice. Most web servers set both expires and cache control headers because covering both of them is the best way to have as many users as possible respect the caching requests. The cache control public directive tells browsers and proxies that the page may be cached. I could put a time frame on my cache control header as well, but the ones I defined with the expires header is sufficient. This code is similar to the previous with only some minor changes. First, it is focusing on caching heavily accessed files, and therefore I'm only caching them for 3 days instead of 3 months. The next difference is with the cache code header. The proxy revalidate directive insists that the proxy servers must revalidate when serving this request, whereas the user's browser doesn't need to revalidate. This is useful when an authenticated page is being cached in the browser. You don't want the proxy to cache and serve the page, whereas it's completely fine if your browser caches and serves the page. We're going to skip over the third file match, since the only difference from the last one is that it is caching frequently updated files for 3 hours. The final file match is disabling caching altogether since these files are dynamic. The cache control is stating the same thing, and I'm adding any directive that disallows caching. The pragma no cache directive is actually a legacy directive, and instructs proxies not to cache the request. This directive is connected to requests and not responses. In truth, this line of code is rather unnecessary, and in the future when I further optimize my .htaccess file, I will probably pull it out. I know we're covering a lot of tedious code, and I promise we are almost done. I am focusing on this because I have found that as I dig into my .htaccess file and understand its purpose, I've been able to find different ways to beat out my SEO competition on simple things like server speed. The last two things to cover with the .htaccess file are compression and e-tags. Compression reduces response times by reducing the size of the HTTP response. Apache actually has 2 compression options, mod_deflate and mod_gzip. The mod deflate is easier to set up and it's standard. The mod gzip is more powerful though because you can pre-compress content. Finally, I recommend deactivating entity tags, or more commonly known as e-tags. E-tags are a mechanism to check for newer versions of a cached file. E-tags are difficult because they take precedence for caching in most browsers. You can change all the headers you want, but if the e-tags associated with a file are always the same, caching will never work how you want it to. In most situations, you should turn your e-tag headers to off. So that's how I use the .htaccess file to speed up the server. However, let me show you what this optimization has done for HerbalDoc's site speed. I like to use gtmetric.com to test site speeds. As you can see here, HerbalDoc has a decent speed grade. I did a search in Google on colon cleanse and detox, and the #1 organic website is drnatura.com. Here is how HerbalDoc compares to this competitor. The search engines have given strong indications that speed is going to matter more and more, so I highly recommend getting started now.